What the hell was Ang Lee thinking with this movie? Like, how much weirder and off the wall can you get with a movie about the Hulk? He's a big green dummy, stop treating him so seriously for God's sake. At least Nick Nolte did a good job playing the homeless murderer. Wait a minute, I'm talking about the wrong movie, aren't I? Sorry, I mean, they're so similar, you can't really blame me, can you? The Amazing Bulk is a death sandwich. I don't even know what that means. After the despair of watching this movie, I had to set it aside for a good couple of days to let it sink in a bit. To somehow find a way to summarize, rationalize, and evaluate what I just saw. It's awful though, I'll tell you that much. From the clips here, you're probably thinking to yourself, huh, that isn't the movie, right? Come on. That can't be the actual movie. Like, I know it's called The Search for the Worst, but come on, this has to be a joke. And you're right, this movie is a joke. It's just a shame that the joke isn't very funny. Every single shot left me scratching my head, because trying to apply any sort of reasonable explanation to the inexplicable choices made by the director here is nigh impossible. And here's why. This is going to be a long and angry one here, folks. Strap yourselves in.
What's up, Doc?
I'll bulk you in a minute if you're not careful. The idea is simple. Scientist man is testing out an experimental serum for building muscle mass, but his experiments go horribly wrong and he's turned into a big purple monster. It's the exact same story as The Incredible Hulk, pretty much. It says on the box that this is one of the most talked about cult superhero movie mockbusters ever made. Which is a lie, because no one has heard about this movie, because it sucks. The only reason I found out about it is because this guy called The Amazing Bulk, on Twitter, has continuously asked me to make a video about it for so long now, so eventually I thought I'd check it out. That was a mistake. So they're trying to sell it ironically. I guess it's the only choice they have, which makes me hate it even more. I immediately knew what I was getting into when I saw the quote on the front of the box. This is the room of superhero movies, which can basically be boiled down to, this movie is so awful, we cannot think of any other way to sell it to people. So let's just prey on the small demographic of people who ironically watch bad movies because no one else will ever want to see this. I even went to the website from the guy whose quote is on the box. This is an actual excerpt from his review. You cannot enjoy this film fully unless you are high or drunk. Wow, what an endorsement. And this is the guy you put on the front cover of your art. You must be so proud. First, I'd like to dispute the fact that this movie is a spoof or mockbuster of superhero movies. A spoof implies that there is some kind of funny imitation and that tropes and things you'd expect to see in this genre are played around with and flipped on their head for comedic effect. The director might have told himself this when he was in production or filming the movie. It might have been the idea at first, but there is so little going on, and it's so profusely lazy that I don't think it's even fair to judge this thing as even a movie, let alone a mockbuster or spoof, because it's more like something you'd see on YouTube for free, made by a bunch of 10-year-olds with a green screen. Where should the line be drawn on when something can be classed as parody or not? If you're so embarrassed by your own film that you feel the need to compare, willingly sell, and flaunt your movie in comparison to one of the most inept movies of all time, The Room, well, to me that comes across like desperation. You paid some artist to do a flashy, well-done cover that is designed to trick people into watching your pile of film on false pretenses, and on top of that, you actively go out of your way to say, well, it's meant to be bad. We didn't have the budget to make it good.
Kind of put our heads together and we kind of brainstormed a little bit. So we came up with this idea of, let's do the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. We'll do a micro-budget version of that. I wanted it to be a bit of a, a spoof, a parody, because I thought if we take ourselves too seriously, just nobody's going to really buy it.
Then why the you trying to pull something like this off in the first place? Let's say I wanted to make a mockbuster about the Fast and the Furious movies. I don't have any special effects knowledge. I don't know anyone who is uncharismatic and terrible enough who could play a Vin Diesel type character. I don't even have a car. And the prospect is pointless and impossible unless I approach a studio with a script they think could sell. So guess what? I just don't do it. I don't do it! I probably could shamble some embarrassing together, but that would be dumb. And a waste of time, a bit like this movie. Sometimes it's a question of if you should do it, not can you do it? Honestly, what is the point? What are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to convey anything with this movie? It's so vapid that it's driving me mad. The technology is available now for anyone to do anything in terms of indie filmmaking, so the, ooh, we've got a micro budget so we can't make it good thing is not gonna fly with me, sonny. Nothing in this movie makes any sense whatsoever. This movie makes me want to carve my skin off with a potato peel, blend it into a smoothie, pour it over myself while I'm shaking with rage, then murder a cassowary. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. I like birds too much to ever do that. Maybe I'll just murder some random old person instead, I don't know. But if you hadn't guessed, I detest this movie. Well, why? It's just a movie. You're just a movie, shut the up. I sat the Amazing Bulk down to interrogate it. I asked, what is artistry, Mr. Bulk? This was its reply. Then I asked, how do you think you could get away with this, Mr. Bulk? To which it replied with,
well, it ain't Barney the Purple Dinosaur!
Did Daddy Derek direct this? Really? Comic Sans in your superhero comic book movie mockbuster? Ugh, I wonder if this director has ever actually read a comic before. Remember everyone, to set up your city you need 16 million establishing shots or things might get confusing. Also remember to show completely random shit like this close-up of a puddle with comically huge water droplets falling into it. So this is a hooker. She's a hooker. That's all that matters. She walks around for a bit. But look carefully where she's walking. So this here is the Plaza Cinema. She's strolling right by it. But then in the next shot, she's crossing the road. But then in the shot after, she's walking towards the Plaza Cinema again. Then she teleports back to another street that was just shown. But then the Plaza Cinema is in the background again in the close-up. This is the actual order of shots in the movie. My head hurts. She goes down an alleyway and is assaulted by some random guy. Then it cuts to a silent reaction of a big purple monster standing there, who's completely randomly moving around like the way animation software interprets motion between two frames. There is no actual animation here, it's just kind of moving around for no reason. Also, what's up with this impossible angle? The purple monster is kind of crudely placed on top of this low upwards facing shot. It's so infuriating to describe, okay? So the purple monster scares the woman who's being assaulted. So the criminal guy freaks out and shoots her in the head. Then even though he's very clearly facing towards the camera, in the next shot he's facing towards the wall, aiming his gun at the bloodstain which is now leaking grey goo, who then turns around and then there's the purple monster jerkily moving around again. Then there's this still image of the murderer kind of zoomed in a bit with a stock animation of a pistol firing a shot into the camera. It's just kind of been placed on top of the frame. He's clearly not holding it. Also, that's a completely different type of pistol too. The bullet flies into the monster. Then the guy holds his arms up to imply that he's being attacked, but we don't see anything because I guess that would require actual animation. And then the monster runs away and it looks idiotic and dumb. Fade to black title card, which again is in Comic Sans. Oh my god, that was a 3-minute scene and it was the most tiring, exhausting thing I've ever had to describe to you. Do you understand why this movie is so difficult to talk about now? Where the am I supposed to even begin? Literally every single shot in the movie can be broken down like that, but I can't do that because we'd literally be here for 18 hours. It probably has left you with a couple of questions though, that I may actually have answers to. The main one being, hey IHE, why does this film look so bad that it makes my eyes hurt? Well, let me explain. That's because every single shot is either filmed on a green screen or is some random stock graphic or animation the director purchased from some random website. I'm not joking. This is not me making assumptions. These websites are listed in the credits and the director proudly talks about it in the movie commentary.
While researching the film, I discovered numerous online sites where I was able to purchase and download these various images.
So the creative process of this movie was to attempt to assemble something tangible around already existing stock graphics and animation that he could crudely shove green-screened actors into. Yes, it's that backwards, it's that simplistic, and it's that cynical. Oh, there's some shots of a city at night. Let's make a hooker walk down it. Oh, there's this footage of a theme park. Let's have a scene where a couple of characters go to the theme park for no reason. Oh, these assets look like a wine cellar. Okay, let's just set a scene in there. The majority of this movie was not even made by the filmmakers. Are you starting to see why I hate this so much now?
What have I done? What have I become?
I mean, maybe it would be okay if it was actually funny, but I don't find it funny, because the longer the movie goes on, the more insulting and fleeting it becomes. Okay, so let me attempt to describe what actually happens in the movie. I won't go into quite that much detail again unless necessary, but stick with me here because this is unbelievably difficult. You know, usually things such as awful continuity, shitty angles that make no sense, terrible effects, cringy acting, atrocious dialogue are ideally few and far between, or at least you'd hope so in an average movie. So in a normal movie, when they come up, it's fun to point at and make fun of it. But every single shot in the movie is like this, so it gets boring. It gets boring fast. Look at this stock transition that plays as soon as the title is over. Like, come on, that's so lazy and distracting. So a couple of investigators are checking out the dead body of the hooker.
Hey Lisa, take a look at this. What do you make of it?
They reuse that awkward upward-facing angle again too. And when this guy walks into the scene, it does nothing but highlight how fake and f***ing awful it looks. They find some guy's wallet, which leads them to their next clue. Okay, so if you were the director of this movie, how would you end this scene? I'm gonna give you 3 options. One of them is true and actually does happen in the movie. Try and guess which one. Number 1, cut to a million different establishing shots. Number 2, logically imply where the investigators are going by showing them driving down a road or something that makes sense. Number 3, randomly, and for no reason at all, have a stock animation of ambulance doors closing over the scene and driving off in a confusing way that makes no sense. I'll give you a second to think.
What do you make of it?
It was lying next to the suspected mugger.
What do you make of it?
I bet we're gonna find out soon enough.
What do you make of it?
You guessed it. It's number 1. Oh wait, sorry, it's number 3. There's an ambulance for no reason. So I guess because the director likes Quentin Tarantino, or any number of directors that like to play around with the timeline of their movies, it cuts to one day earlier, where a plane flies over the ocean, then there's an establishing shot of the building. Then there's another screen transition where a microscope flies into the camera. What am I supposed to take away from that? It's so f***ing frustrating because I want to apply logic and meaning to what he's trying to say with this shit, but I know the answer is that he just happened to find some stock graphic on some random website. So he figured, oh, I'll just throw that one in, why not? So these guys are supposed to be super secret government scientists, despite the digital set looking like a school science lab, because I guess that's all you could find. For some reason, the main character, which is this guy by the way, he's so damn serious all the time, and he keeps doing this face that reminds me of Jeff Daniels. Also, the audio in this movie is so tinny and echoey.
Heightening the immune system, increasing speed and strength.
And sounds like it was recorded in a room that had really terrible acoustics. Kind of like my bedroom.
Great acoustics, everybody!
The director explains in the commentary that he left this boxy audio in because it was easier and was more fitting, or something. What?
The audio just bounces all over. So you get this really kind of an echoey, kind of a boxy sound. Because again, we were on a limited budget. We didn't have the resources to do the entire movie. Any of the interior scenes we actually left as is, because in an interior scene, it might have a little bit of that echoey, boxy kind of feel to it anyway. So I was less concerned with those scenes.
So the main dude's girlfriend shows up in the super secret lab to surprise him, and they go for a romantic walk/run in the park. I purposefully haven't shown you it yet because I wanted to say this with each shot. F you. F you. F you. F you.
You do still want children, don't you?
Are you trying to tell me something?
Oh my god, it's so awkward. Where the did this come from? So it's back to the lab, where they forgot to even place the CG rat inside the case. So it's artlessly plopped on top of the scene and looks You know what, it doesn't even look it fits perfectly. It fits perfectly because everything in this movie looks Stock graphic animation montage. Science! So the main stroppy, pouty, fish-faced guy goes to see his girlfriend's dad, hey, nice water fountain, to ask permission to marry her.
I would love to marry your daughter. Wait.
I guess she lives in the same house as her dad, despite being 30 years old. Wait, why do you need permission to marry her? Surely it's between you two. Why do you have to ask him? Is that like a religious thing?
I hate dust. I don't want it building up in my home.
Hi, Daddy.
You let dust build up, and before you know it, you've got an army of dust bunnies plotting to take over. Beautiful flowers. Where did you get those from? Our garden? I hate dust.
Okay. So apart from that being the weirdest, most stilted and uncomfortable scene I've ever witnessed, I'm not sure what part of it is more confusing to me. The fact that he's holding his dusty finger up like a mental patient, or the fact that he stands around by himself saying that he hates dust.
I hate dust. I hate dust.
So you find out that the sad fish-faced main character is working for the army man. I guess.
Making progress on the experiment, are we?
Look, it's pretty much the exact same dynamic as Bruce Banner and the army dude from the Hulk. You get it. You know what's going on, kind of. I very much enjoy how they have to pretend to walk on the spot by gently swaying side to side.
Want a drink? No, thanks. I need results, Hank.
This is so embarrassing. So he asks if he can marry her daughter, then the army dad gets all pissy and effectively blackmails Fishface by saying that he cannot marry his daughter unless he sees results from the crazy science experiments. Okay, so you know what? All of that is like fine. It's and terrible and the worst, but at least there's some kind of weak setup and loose motivation going on. But then out of nowhere, there's a stock graphic bat transition and a spooky castle, and then this girl comes in with a blonde wig, and there's this CG dog and some guys with spears and a shield despite wearing regular jeans. What in God's name is happening? Then the dog lies on its back and wriggles around. Then this weird cartoon character villain waddles in and is awkward and painful and boring. And the worst thing ever, I hate. Then he shoots the guard with a ray gun, which turns him into a skeleton. I guess that's why they dressed him in that outfit, because he already had the skeleton death animation ready. You f***ing lazy a**hole. Then it gets even more awkward, because these two characters talk like a bunch of sexual innuendo. It's very uncomfortable.
Would you like something, big?
Yes.
Would you like something, hard?
Yes, yes!
And what is that? Why is there a monkey there? Why is that in this movie? What is going on? What does any of this have to do with anything? Why is that on the TV in the background? I feel sick. So then there's another montage, this time of missiles flying into famous monuments all around the world. But then it like straight away cuts away to a theme park where there's a bunch of stock graphics and distracting animation, and the worst roller coaster green screen thing you've ever seen. Do you know how tempted I am to just stop right now? But I gotta keep going, I gotta. Because believe it or not, it gets even worse. It transitions to an empty moving train where the murder guy from the beginning of the movie comes walking at them with a gun and then he mugs him on a moving train. Like, where the fuck you go? Where is he going? The train is still moving. He's just running away to another carriage. But then get this. In the next shot, they're in a f***ing sports car. Why are they on the train? Why? No. F*** you. Then he has an argument with his girlfriend and retreats back to the lab, where he makes a dead plant come back to life. So being the thoughtful scientist that he is, he immediately injects the new serum into his arm and morphs into the Bulk. Then it shows the opening scene of the movie again. He mentions in the commentary how, for micro-budget films, it's more cost-efficient to find ways of reusing shots. When
making a low-budget movie, it is always useful to figure out ways to reuse the same footage, since this will save you both time and money.
There's another scene with the villain guy, but I'm just gonna fast forward it because I hate it so much. The investigators go to see the fish face guy and eventually come to the conclusion that he's a murderer because the bald guy got purple gunge on his hand.
I didn't get this from the peanut butter and jelly sandwich I had for lunch today.
Randomly, Fish Face wanders down in his pajamas to the crime scene and then he morphs into the Bulk. And the worst action scene you've ever seen in the history of anything takes place. They run around in circles for like 1 billion hours, it looks terrible, and it's super boring. And it just doesn't end. And I want to die. Please just let me die. Then the movie has the audacity to try to develop these random-ass characters who we've never seen before, right before they're killed.
Things are scary. What's that?
Okay, so that last part about the new characters being introduced, that was all a lie. That entire shot was made in my living room with the Jar Media cast in about 30 minutes. When shots from your movie are that easy to replicate, especially with that type of minimal effort, you should really be embarrassed.
I know, right? Who would have thought in my own city that my family would not be safe?
I know, right?
And the action just keeps going and going. And then that lady gets squashed, which I guess is pretty funny.
Look out!
Hey look, it's another angle that makes no sense. Okay, I don't even care anymore. This news team comes flying in on a helicopter, and then for no reason the Bulk suddenly turns into a giant man who's been painted purple. You know, I wish the film had more of this type of stuff in it, because that's kind of charming in its shittiness. In the behind the scenes, you can see the unaltered shots with the bald guy grabbing at tiny plastic toys. It's pretty great. I'm pretty sure it's this dude from the movie as well. Finally, the Bulk collapses and is sent to prison, where he's strapped up and taken away for some super secret testing.
Quick, give him the injection before he fully transforms!
Wait, is that what I think it is?
The power of the Hulk could be yours when you need it with Hulk Hands. Hulk Hands, hear them roar. With all the thunderous sounds of the Hulk built in.
Yeah. Hey, it's this guy again. I love his scenes. He wants to blow up the moon now.
And blow up the moon!
You really could do that?
Whatever. This part I just hate so much. I hate it so much that I don't even want to read the script to you right now. I hate it. It's that much. But here we go. There's a 4-minute segment of random stock graphic spaceships moving around. And for some f***ing reason, the director, who also edited the movie, randomly reverses the animations now and again. I can only assume it's supposed to imply something sexual, or he was super bored while he was editing. I mean, this is the kind of shit I used to do when I made videos, so I can't blame him, honestly. Can you please tell me what this means? It's driving me insane. I've analyzed this scene all over, and I cannot figure it out. Please explain it to me. So, oh my god, out of nowhere, the final act is masterfully built up to, and everything starts to make sense. And by make sense, I mean it's still as ever. In fact, now is when things start to get so brain dead that I feel like explanation is nearly impossible. But hot damn, I'm gonna use the power of friendship to try my very hardest, everybody. So the army man wants to use the bulk to stop the villain from blowing up the moon, so they drop him in the spooky woods, and he runs and he runs. Meanwhile, this happens.
Now.
Don't even question it, just accept it and move on. We're nearly at the end now. So he walks past a rock, he walks past a guy in the mountains playing golf, he walks past a leprechaun. Okay, dude, you clearly do not care anymore. Wind farm, hilariously oversized fence, castle. I went on the deleted scenes section of the DVD, and usually when you watch a deleted scene, you can safely say, oh, I see why they cut that out. Like maybe it was messing with the pacing, or it was the wrong tone or something. But there's this deleted scene of like this toy dragon thing, and I have to ask, what about this scene leaves the director saying to himself, nah, this needs to be cut. It doesn't feel right. I mean, the leprechaun was fine, but this is too much. Okay. So then the fish face guy, he tries to get mad and turn into the bulk, but he can't do it. So he pulls this really innocent photograph from out of his pocket of the dude who plays the army guy. He's not even in his army costume. It's just like a random picture. And that's enough to trigger him into turning into the bulk.
I hate dust.
And then the bulk runs around a lot, and there's a boulder, and he chases guy, and a giant foot squashes him. Then an alien flies down from space, and they're in the warehouse with an alien. And then I guess this woman is blindfolded, and she feels the bolt's willy by accident. Then there's a goblin walking through the cave with the dog. Then the bulk's giant foot squashes the villain. But then the army bomb the castle and betray the bulk, and now they want to kill him. So then the bulk does what he does best, baby, and he runs. And he runs and runs and runs some more. I guess this was the point where the director just ran out of any reasonable stock graphics to use, because Robin Hood shoots at him, there's a kangaroo and a koala, some flamingos, a bunch of World War II planes, some animals on the swings, some fat kid on a seesaw, there's like a lizard on a laptop, there's a guy in a biplane who does a cool spin, there's a girl playing football, a pirate ship, another kid playing football, and then there's this thing. Zeus throws a lightning bolt at him, that's pretty cool. Then there's this lizard who's just chilling out, a submarine, I guess. This hunter guy sniffs some bear tracks, that's relevant. Then there's this flying dog, that's cute. And then there's the lizard on the laptop again, and then a bomb falls on him and he dies. But then it turns out he's not dead, he gives the ring to his girlfriend, has a fight with the army guy, and they both fall off the balcony and die. Then his girlfriend, wife, person visits the grave, she leaves, and then the police dude from earlier shows up and takes a wee-wee on his grave. Then a pair of Hulk hands punch him in the face at the end. Holy shit! There's trying and failing and trying to fail. So I guess because I hate myself and my time has no value to me whatsoever, I decided to watch the entire movie commentary with the director. I thought it was going to be a fun old time, but it wasn't. The director boringly sits there for an hour, effectively listing off a bunch of excuses as to why the movie is so bad, and how you shouldn't get mad at it because it's just satire, and how they didn't have a budget so it's the best they could do, and it's a spoof, so who cares? The following is why the point about not having a budget is wrong, and why you should be embarrassed. Robert Rodriguez is like the king of cheap movies. His first movie, El Mariachi, was made for $7,000. Ooh, but that's not a genre movie. That's not fair to compare. Well, my favorite comedy from like the last decade, called What We Do in the Shadows, was a Kickstarter project that was made without a studio. And sure, some recognizable names are attached, but it was a labor of love and it really shows. They also have talent and ideas. Also, it's a funny comedy, non-ironically. Like it actually has jokes, unlike this piece of trash. So according to the director, the footage was filmed in 2008 and it only took 5 days to shoot because it was all on a green screen wall they painted. It was like filming a play.
Who said to me afterwards, he said, you know, Louis, he said, this was more like doing a play.
Then right before the awful 15-minute chase scene at the end, he just stops the commentary and the movie plays in silence for the rest of the running time. He doesn't comment on anything interesting at all. $14,000 was the budget and a year and a half of editing time was committed to this. And on IMDb it says it came out in 2013. So it was already out of date and irrelevant before it came out. Let's just sell it as an ironic parody for all the hipsters who watch bad movies. That'll work. What other options do we realistically have? I was super interested in hearing him justify all the random shit in the movie, especially that scene in space with the reversing, but it's like he just ignores it. There's this one part where he's talking about how he storyboarded the movie, while there's a CG monkey just standing there in the background. You can look at some of the storyboards on the DVD, and the storyboards look identical to the final product. That's so terrible. That's not supposed to be what they're for, man. It's not. He says something like he didn't choose for the final chase scene to be like it is, with all the random shit in it.
Final chase scene at the end of the film where he's escaping as the Bulk. I didn't choose those, a lot of those sequences, so I had to do that research and find those shots.
Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. You're the director. And you edited it. What are you talking about? He admits that a grand total of 6 shots were custom produced for the movie. Everything else was pre-made.
He could write the script around those locations because it could only be based on what I could find that was available. Again, none of this, there's very little that I actually had produced. I'd say maybe about half a dozen shots. I had hired some graphic people to make shots for me. Everything else was... as I described, it's kind of like off the shelf.
Movies can be made up of literally thousands of shots. But let's just say for the sake of argument, a typical movie is 1,000 shots on average. That means this is 0.6% a movie that was made. Why should this movie get a pass just for being a spoof and quite frankly being terrible and lazy on purpose? When movies like The Room, Troll 2, even The Garbage Pail Kids, at the very least, are movies. Their movie making, while shitty in those examples, well, at least it was movie making. This it's such a joke that I don't think it's even fair to compare it to something like The Room. The Room only works because it's so unaware. It's the perfect storm of terrible, awkward awfulness that can be ironically loved and appreciated. The Amazing Bulk was like watching a bunch of people who don't care holding their middle finger up to me and effectively saying, "It's just a prank, bro. It doesn't matter. It's just a parody." Usually I can find something to appreciate in bad movies. I see it like a learning experience. Why doesn't it work? Usually it is down to something pretty simple. A lack of focus, a lack of experience or knowledge or intuition. Someone crazy is at the helm. The script is bad or generic or weird. Too much studio involvement. But everything is wrong with this movie. The problem is that they were defeatist and didn't give a single shit from the get-go. Not one thing is done right. The only credit I could give it is that you've made a movie that exists and can be bought. But it's embarrassing, and it would be something I personally would hide instead of being proud of. They say no one sets out to make a bad movie. The director even says it in the commentary.
I never set out to purposely make a bad movie. In fact, nobody ever sets their sights on making a bad movie.
But all I hear is a bunch of excuses. It's not funny, it has no point. It's not ironic to enjoy like The Room, it's a waste. And I'm sorry if I've offended you if you're watching this, like director man, but I hate this movie. It's the worst movie I've ever seen. It's so awful that I'm going to put an asterisk on the cover of this movie in the order section at the end, explaining that it hardly even counts because I don't think it can even be fairly classed as a movie in my opinion. Let me just throw a bunch of stupid shit on the screen to distract you for a bit. Isn't this ironic? Isn't this a lol parody for us all to enjoy? Why don't you buy it on DVD? I didn't have the budget to make a real video for you guys, so I thought I'd just throw a bunch of random stock footage and graphics on the screen. You see my point? Movies are special to me. They can teach you things, make you laugh, make you cry, distract you from your life for a few hours. It's why I started this series in the first place. Even bad movies can be great, but this is exactly why I hate The Amazing Bulk so much. When the movie was over, I hadn't learned anything. I didn't get any enjoyment even on the most superficial or ironic level. It didn't even really teach me anything about what shouldn't be done with movie making, because that would imply that there is movie making going on in the first place. You might be saying, oi, prick. Stop taking this dumb movie so seriously. No, you shut up. That's exactly what the director wants, and I will not stand for it. There's no excuse for this. There's no excuse. And I almost feel like I deserve an apology for spending so much time analyzing this boring waste of a movie.
I hate this!